The Silent Reckoning, a story that shattered family bonds and revealed bitter truths. I spent 3 agonizing years pretending to be deaf, all to discover what the people closest to me, those I called family and friends, truly thought of me. And that shocking, soul-crushing truth didn't just hurt, it utterly destroyed my family, ripping away the flimsy veil of affection and exposing the bitter core of their contempt. It all began innocently enough during my junior year of college at Northwood Academy. I was a fairly typical student, navigating friendships, academics, and the usual teenage dramas. Then, a severe ear infection struck, a relentless siege that left me temporarily deaf in both ears for 2 agonizing weeks. It was a frightening experience, the world suddenly muted, vibrant sounds replaced by an oppressive silence. Yet, amidst the disorienting quiet, a new sense began to sharpen: my vision. I quickly learned to read lips, a skill born out of necessity, a desperate attempt to stay connected to a world that had suddenly gone quiet. What I discovered in those 2 weeks was not just fascinating, it was a chilling revelation. People say the most horrific, unvarnished things when they believe you cannot hear them. Their guard drops, their true thoughts spill out, unfiltered and often venomous. My hearing returned as suddenly and mysteriously as it had vanished. One morning, the chirping of birds outside my window, the rustle of my bedsheets, the distant hum of traffic, it all flooded back, a joyous, overwhelming symphony. But I kept my silence. The initial spontaneous decision to conceal my recovered hearing was driven by a morbid curiosity. I wanted to see, to truly see, what difference it made. Would their words remain the same, or would the knowledge of my disability alter their behavior? I quickly found out. The first blow came from my best friend, whom I'll call Claire. Claire and I had been inseparable since kindergarten. We shared secrets, dreams, and countless late-night study sessions fueled by cheap coffee. Or so I thought. Just days after my hearing returned, sitting with her and our mutual acquaintance, Martha, in the bustling campus cafeteria, I saw Claire's lips form words that twisted my stomach into knots. She called me pathetic behind my back. While I sat right next to her, ostensibly staring blankly ahead, Claire confided in Martha how utterly exhausting it was for her to constantly pretend to care about my problems. "She's so horribly needy," Claire mouthed, rolling her eyes in a gesture of exaggerated weariness. I just stared ahead, a neutral expression plastered on my face, but inside, a cold, sharp shard of pain lodged itself in my chest. This wasn't just a casual jab. It was a profound betrayal from someone I trusted implicitly. The world, which had just returned its sounds, now seemed far more dangerous. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davies, proved to be even more disheartening. Our home in the quiet, tree-lined suburb of Sunnyside Heights had always felt like a sanctuary. But with my newfound deafness, it transformed into a stage for their true sentiments. During our nightly dinners, a ritual I once cherished, my mother would often mouth silent phrases to my father across the table. "She's falling behind in everything," she'd form, her lips pursed in a look of concern that seemed genuine to anyone who couldn't read her words. My father would nod, his brow furrowed, mouthing back, "It's probably just a phase." These silent exchanges, so seemingly innocuous to an outside observer, were like tiny, poisonous darts aimed directly at my self-worth. I observed their worried glances, their whispered concerns, and realized that their worry wasn't for me or my well-being, but for how my perceived limitations reflected on them. It was a performance, a parental pantomime of distress for an audience of one, me, the silent observer. But the real, soul-shattering revelation came from my older sister, Emily. Emily was 2 years my senior, the quintessential golden child of the Davies household. She was the one with the meticulously organized binders, the string of perfect grades, the star striper of the university soccer team, and the enviable early admission to the prestigious Eastern University in the city. I had always admired her, looked up to her, and genuinely believed we shared an unbreakable bond of sisterhood. I was tragically mistaken. One evening, Emily brought her boyfriend, Jake, home to study for their upcoming finals. I was in the living room, ostensibly engrossed in my own textbooks, though every fiber of my being was now attuned to the silent drama unfolding around me. Emily and Jake settled at the large oak kitchen table, perfectly visible from my vantage point. "Is she always this pathetic?" Jake asked, his head subtly tilting in my direction, a smirk playing on his lips. My blood ran cold. My sister, my confidant, my supposed ally, then laughed. A light, carefree laugh that felt like a slap across my face. "Pretty much," she replied, her voice forming without a sound, yet echoing deafeningly in my mind. "My parents baby her because she's the disappointment. They've basically given up on her being successful like me." Jake then asked, "Doesn't that bother you?" Emily's response was delivered with a dismissive wave of her hand and a triumphant glint in her eyes. "Are you kidding? It makes my life easier. They expect nothing from her, everything from me. It's less pressure on me." I kept my face perfectly neutral, my gaze fixed on my textbook, but inside, a maelstrom of emotions raged. Betrayal, anger, sorrow, and a simmering, ice-cold resolve. In that moment, the initial curiosity transformed into a burning need for justice. I wasn't just observing anymore. I was planning my revenge. For the next 3 long years, my deception became my secret mission, an intricate web of hidden truths and calculated observations. My phone became my closest confidant, filled with covert recordings of their silent conversations. Moments where I would subtly prop it up, pretending to be reading, but secretly capturing their unfiltered thoughts. I documented absolutely everything. I learned that my parents had actually established a betting pool with various relatives, my aunts, uncles, and even distant cousins, about whether I would even graduate high school. My guidance counselor at Northwood Academy, a woman I had once admired for her supposed empathy, regularly told her colleagues that I was a lost cause, a burden on the system, someone unlikely to ever achieve anything significant. Even my grandmother, the seemingly sweet Mrs. Evelyn, confided in my mom, her lips twisting in a grimace of disdain, that she was embarrassed to introduce me to her elite Oakwood Bridge Club. Each revelation was a fresh wound, but also a strengthening of my resolve. I was building a case, a devastating dossier of their true characters. The ultimate, unforgivable betrayal, the one that broke the camel's back and forced my hand, came at Emily's grand graduation party. The entire extended family was there, gathered in our meticulously decorated backyard in Sunnyside Heights, celebrating Emily's acceptance into a prestigious medical school. Laughter, clinking glasses, and effusive praise for Emily filled the air. I sat quietly in a corner, playing the parts of the disabled sister, observing the charade unfold. That's when I overheard my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Davies, talking to my uncle, Mr. Green, their voices hushed, but their lips moving clearly for my now expert eyes. "We're honestly relieved," my dad said, a genuine sigh of relief escaping his lips. "At least one of our kids turned out normal. We can focus our college fund entirely on Emily's medical school now. She's going to be a doctor, a true success." My mom nodded emphatically, a triumphant glint in her eyes. "The deaf one will probably qualify for disability benefits anyway. We don't have to worry about her future anymore. She'll be taken care of." They were planning to financially abandon me, to write me off, simply because they believed I had a disability. They were literally discussing my financial future, my very existence, as an afterthought, a burden they could conveniently offload onto the state. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an act of profound cruelty. A declaration that my worth was tied to my perceived normalcy and potential for financial success. All my collected evidence, all the whispered insults, all the calculated slights, it all coalesced into one vast, unbearable truth. A cold, calm determination settled over me. I stood up, walked deliberately to the center of the room, and clapped my hands together, once, loudly. The sound, sharp and clear, cut through the celebratory din. Every head in the room turned towards me. "Can everyone hear that?" I asked, my voice strong, clear, and perfectly audible. Can everyone hear that? The entire room fell silent. Emily's face, radiant just moments before, went utterly white, her jaw dropping. My parents froze, their smiles fading into masks of confusion and then dawning horror. "Because I can hear everything," I continued, my voice unwavering, each word a hammer blow. My mother's mouth fell open, a silent scream frozen on her face. "What do you mean?" she managed to stammer, her voice barely a whisper. "I mean, I've been able to hear perfectly since my junior year of college," I replied, my voice chillingly calm, utterly devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the earthquake raging within me. I just wanted to see, truly see, what kind of people my family really were when they thought I couldn't hear them. Then, with a dramatic flourish, I pulled out my phone. The small device which had been my secret witness now became my instrument of truth. I pressed play, and the recording filled the stunned silence of the room. It was their voices, clear and undeniable. My parents discussing how much money they'd save by not sending the defective one to college. Then Emily's voice, light and dismissive, confirming her contempt for me to Jake. The audio snippets, perfectly synchronized with their earlier silent conversations, played out like a damning soundtrack. Emily gasped, then started sobbing, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "We didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." I cut her off, my voice sharp, leaving no room for excuses or denials. The tears streaming down her face seemed less like remorse and more like fear of exposure. Turned my gaze to my parents, who stood before me, their faces a mixture of shock, shame, and a desperate, futile anger. "You raised me for 18 years, I articulated, each word weighted with years of silent observation and pain. "And then you wrote me off the moment you thought I had a disability. You judged me, dismissed me, and plotted to abandon me, all based on a lie you believed." I then picked up the graduation gift they had given me earlier that evening, a cheap, flimsy silver bracelet they had clearly grabbed at the last minute, an afterthought in their grand celebration of Emily. I held it out to my mom, extending my arm stiffly. "Keep this," I said, my voice dripping with icy disdain. "You'll need to save money now that you only have one daughter." With that final declaration, I turned on my heel and walked out of that house, leaving behind the stunned silence and shattered remnants of a family that was never truly mine. I never looked back. 5 years have passed since that day. I've since moved across the country, building a new life for myself, far from the toxic echoes of Sunnyside Heights. I'm now completing my master's degree in psychology at New Dawn University, specializing in family dynamics and trauma. a choice deeply influenced by my personal experiences. I've found my path, my purpose, guided by that harsh but ultimately liberating lesson. Emily, I hear, dropped out of medical school after only 2 years. It turns out she couldn't handle the immense pressure and rigorous demands of a professional career without her parents constantly doing everything for her, without their unwavering and financially robust support. Their golden child crumbled when she had to stand on her own. My parents have tried to reach out, sending sporadic, carefully worded letters filled with platitudes and vague apologies, claiming they misunderstood what I heard, that it was all a terrible misunderstanding. But I have 3 years of meticulous recordings, a digital archive of their true selves, that unequivocally say otherwise. Their words, once silenced by my pretense, now speak volumes. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the deception, if I feel guilty about the elaborate charade I maintained for so long. The answer is simple, unequivocal. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the pain it caused, not just to me, but the destruction it wreaked on the facade of what I once thought was a loving family. But I do not regret learning the truth. I learned the single most valuable lesson of my life, a lesson that has shaped my future and given me an unshakable understanding of human nature. When people show you who they really are, believe them. Believe them even when they think you can't hear them.